kind of video. So this is actually in response to a lot of messages that we have received via social media and on our Patreon page as well regarding, sorry, hold on a second, regarding our coverage of the Filip Miucin IGN Dead Cells incident and us actually not covering it on this most recent episode of the podcast. So I wanted to take a couple of moments and talk about that. We've actually had a couple people reach out to us, specifically Dave Ernsberg, who's one of our Patreon producers, sent a really well-crafted email today talking about why it was important to hear our perspective and ask some very poignant questions that I'm going to use this platform to answer. So you're going to see me go back and forth because I want to read some of these points that Dave made as well. So let's talk about it. The decision to not cover Filip Miucin's plagiarism of the Dead Cells review via IGN this week on the podcast was my decision. I reached out to Marty earlier in the week and said I'd like us not to cover it at this point. There was a lot of information about it, a lot had gone on. The firing or the release for Filip being released from IGN was just very recent. But we didn't have a response from Filip yet. We didn't have anything to kind of know the other side of it, and I didn't want to kind of just pile onto the negativity that was occurring. And I don't think there was any need to kind of kick him while he was down, so I wanted us to avoid the situation. But again, a lot of you responded, I'd like to know your opinion, I'd like to hear what the internet thinks, so this is a little bit of that. So Filip was actually on our show a couple of months ago. I think it was episode 171, I believe. He had some experience with the Labo, getting some hands on the Labo. He was a father. He was on IGN, so we asked him to come on, and he was so gracious with his time with us. Such a fantastic guy. Really great communication back and forth on Twitter and DM where we were able to get a hold of him. And just even on the podcast, just fantastic. Really genuinely engaging. It was so great to have him on. He talked about his experience about growing from being an independent YouTube creator and channel and basically wanting to build that channel as his resume to join IGN, and obviously he had succeeded at that goal. Talked a lot about kind of like the passion of following your dreams, following your goals, and getting there. And I thought it was a great segment for people who, you know, you may listen to the show in the car with your kids who are also wanting to be aspiring content creators. I thought it was a great frame of reference to getting there as well. So check it out. I think it's a good episode. Filip was fantastic. Question, do we regret having him on the show now? No, in no way do we regret that. Everything happens in time and space, and when he was on the show several months ago, it was fantastic. He would absolutely be welcome to come on our show again. I definitely would love to chat with him about this incident as well and what occurred and what got him here. We have not had any communication with him via DM or Twitter or anything like that. We have not reached out to him yet. I'm sure, as you can imagine, his world has kind of been thrown upside down over the last week, and I don't think a small little podcast that he was on a while ago needs to jump in there, and I'm sure he's got a lot of other things he needs to deal with, and you know, we're hoping that everything will come out of the storm a little bit better, or he'll come out of the storm from this as well. Filip has since, obviously, actually yesterday we retweeted it from our account, but he has put a response out as well to the plagiarism and kind of how his week has been. One of the things I really want to keep people's attention on there is his call out to not connect with his family about it. I think obviously when I heard that, my hairs went up on my neck, and obviously this is a very public event that he's going through, and I think that there are a lot of trolls on the internet, a lot of people who say really horrible things, and it's not very far you need to go to find some really horrible things said or written about Filip this last week, and things I think that you know, if we had to put them on a board and say you wrote this, I think we'd all be a bit shamed and embarrassed by it. So I think the internet needs to not pile on, needs to take a step back and not kick someone when they're down. I can reassure you this. Whatever you think you need to say to Filip about how you feel about this, or what your opinion is, probably you don't need to, because he's probably already heard it from a lot of people. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean you have to share it. That's okay. And if it's a negative opinion, keep it to yourself. You don't need to be that person. It's a little bit of a dad tip right there, right? Positivity is a good thing. We don't need to pile on and be jerks. Nobody needs that. You're not gonna win some big jerk of the week award for it. Okay, he's already pretty down, I'm sure, from what's occurred. You don't need to do that, and you really need to leave his family alone. That's really not cool. So please be respectful. Be respectful of what they're going through as a family and what Filip is going through as well. David had asked here as well. This is a great question. Is what he did defensible at all in the age of the millennial and how the schooling system works in general? Rewriting copy is enigmatic, and even going on when we were kids, is the borrowing of other people's work more common than we think it is, and the rise of social media raises the question of what is actually original work, rework world of retweeting and repackaging lots of content over and over again. And that's a great question, right? Nowadays, with kids having so much access to so much content at their fingertips, what is actually theirs, and the understanding of what is actually stealing, right? So, you know, when if my daughter walks into a shop and steals a set of earrings, she can say, I stole these. They physically have them, right? But when it's an idea, a concept, a written thing, that's hard, because you're like, am I stealing? Yes, you are, right? It's not an original idea. It's not your idea. It's someone else's idea, and you're taking it from them, and you're trying to repackage it or rebundle it or repurpose it as your own. That is indeed stealing. And I think, again, when children have so much access to content, right, then they themselves want to be content creators, or seeing success of other content creators. This person's got more thumbs up. This people's got more likes, more followers. I want to be like that. What's working for them? Oh, when they say that, when they do this, when they act this way. I even see this with my daughter. Some of the kind of modeling or modeling that they're doing of, like, hey, I hear some of the things they say, and I'm like, I think I've heard their YouTube friends say that, or they're kind of trying to figure it out, right? So there's a little bit of learning process for children. When you were a grown adult, right, you should know the difference between right and wrong and what's stealing, what's not stealing. We as parents, and I think as social media changes and as information becomes so readily accessible, and as content creation becomes so accessible, and everyone has the ability to create content, we need to be very leery of what is ours and what is not ours, right? And we need to understand how we need to give proper credit to whose content it is. And I think that's very important. I think it's very challenging. And I don't think school systems are probably as prepared as they need to be to do this, or to prepare someone for this. I would assume that also there's an infrastructure, potentially something like IGN, to help this or help capture it. And I'm sure there's, you know, the 10 commandments of IGN. One is thou shalt not plagiarize and steal, I assume, if there are 10 commandments. So I think that's a challenging thing. I think we as parents need to continually encourage creative thinking. I think it's okay to understand what's out there, but what is a creative thought that you are coming up with? How is it your thought? How is it your work? How is it your art? And it's even the idea of, like, hey, I'm drawing something else. Well, am I technically stealing that? Right? If I draw an image of Mario, my own versioning of Mario, and I make that into a t-shirt, is that stealing? Well, technically it's Mario. Is Mario an IP? There's a whole legality around intellectual property and this kind of stuff. Now, I'm spinning a little bit here, so it's not what we're talking about. This, how do we encourage and understand, or help children understand what is theirs and what is not theirs, and when an idea is theirs and not someone else's? That is something we're going to be challenged with. I think Filip is a grown adult. He should know the difference. He's not a child. So that's kind of my stance on that one. I don't think blaming the school system or being a millennial is an excuse for it. I think the situation will become more challenging for us as parents to help understand what is not copywriting and brokering our children through that as well. The question is, what's next for Filip? Your statement here is also, I would like to have a dad's view on what's next for Filip and people who make mistakes like that. He made a bad choice and he's having to deal with it under some very intense public scrutiny. Most of us made less than good choices at some point in life, but got to deal with it in relative privacy. So how is he going? How is he doing from where you sit? So a couple things. We all mess up. We all screw up. We have to be okay to screw up. You are absolutely right. This is a huge stage. There's a lot of spotlight on it. I mean, the biggest video game outlet out there, and a very big black eye. How is he doing? I think he went silent for a while, which I think is good. He did put out his messaging. I think the messaging was actually a little bit off point. He's trying to control his own messaging, which is good. Where does he go from here? He's going to have a very hard time ever working in the video game industry again, in any major outlet, or having access to specific content like he may have in the past. That's going to be very damaging, very damning for him too. Which is a shame. This is, as he mentioned to us, this was his dream job. This was exactly what he wanted to do. And he made a mistake, and unfortunately, that's a pretty tough fall from grace. He needs to control his messaging, which is what he's done. He needs to kind of just rally around his family, his support, his friends, and figure out what his next steps are. He's got his own YouTube channel, so I'm sure he can go back to hey guys, I picked up this game, or I picked up this controller, and let me review it, and so he has some following there. So he has that access, and that may allow him to create content. But I think the level of access, the content that he probably created, the infrastructure at his disposal they had at IGN, and the access to developers and studios will not be as great as he had before, and he'll have to very slowly kind of work his way back up to gain trust. And that's the other thing, right? Is he's he can go back to his YouTube channel, but the trust that he has lost from people who followed him through support him will be very difficult for him to probably gain back. And I hope he does. I hope he has the ability to. I think we as a society need to allow people to make a mistake, and he made a mistake, and we need to be able to say, that sucks. You need to own that. You need to say it was a mistake. You need to work on your way to fix that. You need to do that. But we also need to just back up and be like, you do you. You need to sort that, right? And I'm sure that every single review, everything he does from now on, will always scroll through a comment. You're gonna find some troll in there. It's like, well, did you plagiarize this review as well, right? I get it, and it's very easy to kick someone when they're down. It's harder for us to try and encourage and lift them up when they're down. And I think what we need to do as a people is to step back and say, whew, you need to take you need to worry about you need to worry about your family, you need to worry about yourself, you need to be okay, because this is tough. So don't pile on him, don't fuel on the fire, don't say, we wish Filip good luck with whatever it is that he's going to do. We're very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate to see him leave or depart in the way he did. It's very unfortunate what happened. I wish I knew what had happened, why it happened. Maybe, not that there's a good reason for it ever, but how can that get better? I feel bad for IGN. They're going to be fine, I'm sure, but this still will kind of haunt them. Absolutely it will. They've done probably the right action, which is firing Filip. But at the same time, it looks bad. Boomstick, who were the ones that were plagiarized. I feel bad that they were plagiarized, but I'm sure it's going to help their numbers and people following them and views. So that's probably going to boost them. So that's a good thing for them. And then for the developers of Dead Cell, I bet you this has helped them sell games as well. So yeah, I don't know, guys. That's kind of our thought. I hope that people take away from this to be nice. You don't need to be mean. Accidents happen. It's wrong. As parents, we would say this